2024. The latest high-scoring Italian film number 2 Juror went online today. This film was created by Hollywood Easton, who is likely to be the 94-year-old man's shirt repair work. The story takes place in the United States. He received a court summons, and he was randomly selected as a juror in the trial. I thought he only needed to fulfill his duties as a citizen, but who would have thought that the whole incident The defendant James was involved in the murder of his girlfriend, and the juror's job is to vote to decide whether James is convicted or not. However, before the case is officially opened, the judge still needs to examine each juror one by one. Anyone who has a conflict of interest in this case can't participate in a bus driver. Because the suspect took his car 2 years ago, he was excluded, but he volunteered to join. After learning that he was a writer and his background was clean, the prosecutors of both the prosecution and the defense were very satisfied.
Good, please enter Justin Camp as juror number 2.
Faith, the prosecutor, began to describe the details of the case. James and his girlfriend Carter lived together in a pub. They had a mass quarrel over whether they lived together. Jongsi knocked over the bottle of wine. Carter left the bar when he saw it. James followed him outside, and the conflict between them became more and more fierce. He kept admitting his mistake to his girlfriend, but the other party finally disappeared into the rain. His body was found outside the guardrail beside the road, because James was the last person to come into contact with his girlfriend, and there was a witness at the crime scene. The old man in the dark night who burned the camel in the rainstorm was James, so the police concluded that he was the murderer. After listening to the details of the case, Jace's expression gradually increased. It turned out that he was also in the bar that night because he promised his wife. So he was having a fierce ideological struggle. A bad premonition. However, in the rainstorm, he looked down at the text message sent by his wife. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a loud NG came from the front of the car. After getting off the bus, he found that there was no impact object around him except for the slight damage of the vehicle. When he saw the warning sign by the roadside, he mistakenly thought that he had just hit a wild animal crossing the road. At this time, Jasmine was very stagnant, which showed that it was not a coincidence. My friend's lawyer told the other party about the process of escaping at night and asked him what would happen if he surrendered himself. But the answer he got was desperate, and the price of doing so was not only his wife and children, but also his wife and children. Finally, James chose the latter between the truth and the sudden realization, but Sheng's conscience told him that he still had to do some cases and come to the jury's door B to vote. At first, most people thought James was convicted of murder, because all the evidence was obvious, and the jurors were basically housewives. After voting against it, Jace is now unwilling to disclose his crime, and at the same time, he can't bear to expect James to kill. As the whole case has no key to eliminating it, Jace dragged it off with all kinds of help, so everyone voted against it. Joe is also suspicious about this case. He is a retired accuser who told him that James is not the murderer. After showing his domineering IP inspection, all the members present here expressed happiness at his words, and the unindependent housewives fell for their brothers. Car IT could have been a hit and when. Driving to the place of delivery alone, combined with the situation at the scene, seemed to further confirm his judgment, and the intentional Jas almost exposed himself when he saw the phone call from his wife in the middle. Chao Jian saw that it was a green Toyota Rongfeng. He immediately recognized it as Jazri, and he asked the other party why he was listening to him, and used jurors to have no right to investigate to divert the topic. Jonathan didn't think much about it, and then took out a stack of documents. He collected the maintenance records of the vehicles in the town after the incident, focusing on screening out the vehicles with damaged front, and reduced the range to 15 vehicles. Toyota of Sri Lanka was among them. He was immediately shocked by the old work efficiency. Although the other party was about to exclude himself from the traffic, an accident would happen sooner or later, so he deliberately dropped the documents in front of the bailiff. As a result, he successfully attracted the other party's attention. You violated.
Your oath? That's yours. Your?
Honor if I may too upheld deal. I take as a police officer to never betray my character, my integrity, or the public trust.
Mr. Tukaveski, you are hereby removed from jury.
Sirs was a little disappointed and afraid. He told him that it was a mistake. Faith looked indifferent on the surface, but his heart began to waver at the moment. Then he took the famous list and conducted a row of checks, but the repair shop owner's answer couldn't find fault. The car that passed by GC went to the crime scene was surprised by his inference of a cold sweat, which added some credibility. After the only witness contacted, Faith had a new understanding of American justice.
Well, like I said at the trial, the police come by, show me a picture, asked me if he was a man I saw that night.
They show you any other pictures? Oh,
No, they knew IT was him. They just needed me to confirm.
the police's way of handling cases is so simple and rude, and the jury on this side started the vote again, but the result was half of approval and half of opposition. The old 6 people firmly believed that James was guilty, just because the other party had a gang pattern. In his opinion, no matter whether James killed his girlfriend or not, he should not be a good person who has contributed to society. Seeing that everyone continued to argue like this, there was no result. The object of this investigation is Jace's wife. Because the head of the vehicle is his wife's name, Faith didn't know this, and Faith heard that his wife dragged her husband out of the river basin when he hit an animal. He was very sure that the accident happened on another road, because that's what her husband said when he came home that night. Faith confirmed it again and again, but he got the same answer. At the same time, Jace made an appointment with his lawyer friend, and he said his innocence again. After hearing this, Jace felt afraid that he already knew how to choose at the moment. After getting home, his wife told her about Faith's visit to the door, remembering her husband's abnormal behavior for many days, and the fact that the vehicle was crashed, and guessed the secret that Jace listened to. But it was not her original intention to escape. Besides, the baby born couldn't live without a father, so the couple decided to tell the truth. The car left the parking lot almost at the same time. Just like James's defense in court, he drove in the direction of his girlfriend's walking, saw no one, and then turned around and returned home. After arriving at the scene of the general case, the old leader Jace heard him observe that Jace's skills were suspicious from the beginning, and he didn't know what kind of tricks he was doing. At the same time, he didn't want to know what kind of medicine was in it. At present, what he was most concerned about was to get the knot quickly. As for who the hands were, he didn't care. Anyway, in his heart, he thought that James, who still had gangster patterns, was a false hand, and the false hand was full of crisis. He also changed by this step. When the prisoner closed his shoulders and waited for the final result Faith wanted to be achieved later, he was not happy at all at the moment, and he was even more ashamed to see the court justice on the badge. Soon, Jace's wife gave birth to the baby smoothly, but he was not in the mood to enjoy this happiness. Whenever a police car passed by, he was worried to hang. On the end of the day, Jace sat in the auditing play. When he learned that James was sentenced to life, he almost cried. He took out his mobile phone to search in doubt. After seeing the photos of false sighting and his wife, he instantly understood the truth of the incident. The two started a dialogue under the balance of God. One was a barrister who had just grown step by step because of this case, while the other was a good husband and father in a happy family. They both chose to bury their conscience for their own interests.
Well, sometimes truth isn't justice.